When I first walked into that old house, it didn't feel like a home, it felt like a secret waiting to be discovered. The walls were cracked, the air was heavy, and there was this strange silence, the kind that made you feel like you weren't alone, even when you were. I just bought this place in the capital city, a once beautiful home abandoned for 3 years. The previous owners were family friends who'd moved overseas, and when they needed cash urgently, I jumped on the offer. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And in this city, owning property felt like winning the lottery. Sound of padlock clinking open. The main door had only a padlock, no real lock, no gate. It looked more like a construction site than a home. But I didn't mind. I saw potential. That is, until I noticed something strange. When I first moved in, there was a motorcycle parked inside my garage. No note. No person. Just sitting there like it belonged. So, I did what any reasonable person would do. I pushed it out onto the street. A few hours later, an angry old man started banging on my new gate, yelling for his bike. Metallic banging SFX, echoing. I didn't answer. Through my window, I saw him pacing like a caged animal before storming off with his bike. And that's when I realized. This neighborhood wasn't just unfriendly, it was territorial. Still, I let it go. I thought, maybe he's just one of those grumpy old neighbors. But I had no idea, that man was about to become my personal nightmare. A week later, something weird started happening. I was in the shower, relaxing after a long day, when I noticed the water pressure dropped. Barely a drizzle. And just as that happened, I heard something outside. A mechanical hum. A water pump. Not mine, his. The old man next door lived on the ground floor of a 3-story house. He owned the place, but rented out the top 2 floors to tenants. And suddenly it clicked. He had his own pump, but why was mine losing pressure whenever his turned on? I tested it again. Waited until his pump stopped. Turned my tap. Perfect flow. Then, when his started again, nothing. My jaw clenched. My stomach twisted. Was he stealing my water? It sounded absurd, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The bills had been weirdly high for years, even when no one lived here. The old owners had blamed pipe leaks. But now I knew the truth. At some point, this greedy old man had snuck onto my property and tapped into my supply line. I didn't know where the connection was. It could have been underground, behind a wall, anywhere. But he was siphoning my water, using my resources, laughing behind my back. It wasn't about money. It was about entitlement. About someone thinking they could take what's yours because they thought you'd never fight back. For days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Should I confront him? Report him? Or something else? Then, one night, as his pump buzzed through the walls, I got an idea, simple, silent, and devastating. It was Monday. Midnight. His pump kicked on, that familiar word that had haunted my evenings. I walked outside, barefoot on the cold cement, my dogs watching silently. And then, I turned off my main water supply. Just a small flick of a valve. That's all it took. His pump kept running, whirring harder, faster, desperate for water that wasn't coming. What he didn't know was that when a pump runs dry, it overheats. And when it overheats, it burns, not just the motor, but the wiring that feeds it. I waited. Hours passed. And then, silence. The next morning, I heard shouting. His tenants, furious, yelling that they had no water, no power. Apparently, the constant strain fried his wiring, blew the fuses, and shorted the circuits. The police got involved. The tenants filed complaints. He had to pay fines, return deposits, and worst of all, he lost both tenants, his only source of income. Within days, he was broke. Moving out. Forced to live with his daughter because he couldn't afford repairs. And me? I just watched it unfold, silently watering my garden with the perfect pressure of water, my water. He came to my gate once, asked if I had turned my supply off that night. I smiled and said, "Yeah, had a small leak. Just fixing it." His eyes twitched, that flicker of realization, the moment he knew. He couldn't prove anything. He couldn't fight it. He'd taken what wasn't his. And karma had taken everything from him. You know. Sometimes, revenge doesn't need violence. Sometimes, all it takes is turning off a tap.